Hey everybody, welcome back to Toyzilla's Book Club. We are continuing to read the book The Looking Glass Wars. We are going to be reading chapters 55 and 56 today. These are the last chapters in the book. If you haven't caught up till now, you can find the other chapters on our YouTube channel. Remember, go search for Toyzilla and look for that bear bot symbol. You'll find everything you need right up over there. Now, if y'all send in some artwork that y'all want me to display, I would really like that. You know, what we're reading. You feel yourself getting into the artsy zone. And Toyzilla would like that very much. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and see how book one of this trilogy ends. Don't worry, I got all three books, and we will be reading all of them after we're done with this one. Toyzilla got your back. Wouldn't leave you on red. Alright. Chapter 55. General Doppler was the first to recover himself. He saw Dodge sitting on the floor, panting, covered in blood. His own and the cat's. Call a surgeon! Not necessary, sir. Oh no, I'm here and have just the thing. The walrus butler stepped over and dead glass eyes and waddled across. The walrus butler stepped over dead glass eyes and waddled across the room carrying a kit that contained a glowing rod to clean wounds and stop the bleeding, a sleeve of interconnected NRG nodes and fusing cores, and a spool of lab-grown skin with laser cauterizer. The walrus bowed to Alice, pleased that fate had granted him the occasion. I welcome your return most heartily, Queen Alice, he said. That brought Alice around. No one had ever called her Queen before. The walrus began ministering to Dodge's wounds. Expressionless, Dodge stared at the heart crystal. Impossible to know what he's thinking. Has vengeance been served, or... There came a sudden disturbance at the ballroom's entrance as the Lord and Lady of Diamonds, the Lord and Lady of Clubs, and the Lord and Lady of Spades pushed their way through the gathered chessmen and hurried up to Alice with looks of great relief. We heard such a commotion, said the Lady of Diamonds, and when it stopped, we came as fast as we could, hardly daring to hope. Your victory fulfills our deepest hopes for the queendom, finished the Lord of Spades. Yes, the Lady of Diamonds went on. Absolutely. It has been horrid, the tyranny we've suffered at the hands of that woman. Red has kept us hostage, Queen Alice, offered the Lady of Clubs. Is that so? Alice said with a doubting look at Bibwit. Well, our bodies weren't held hostage so much as our minds, said the Lady of Clubs. If we didn't obey Red as every Wonderlander had to, we would have been sent to the Crystal Mines. And I'm ashamed to say, said the Lady of Diamonds, that we Diamonds, a titled family dating back to the earliest epochs, were treated the most poorly by the former queen. You, quoth the Lord of Clubs, my wife and I certainly suffered more than any of your clan. And I dare say nothing but the truth, why don't you? Interrupted the Lady of Spades. If anyone can claim the title of the most abused under Red, I think it is my husband and I. The lords and ladies began talking all at once, arguing about who had been the worst off under Red's rule, until Alice put a finger to her lips. Shh! And they fell silent. As soon as circumstances allow, a tribunal will be established to determine whether you behaved honorably during Red's reign or whether you are, in fact, guilty of war crimes, Alice said. War crimes, spluttered the Lady of Spades. The White Knight and his pawn surrounded the suit families. But the one who is perhaps most guilty is not here, said Bibwood Hart. You mean this fellow? It was the Rook. All heads turned to see him leading Jack of Diamonds into the room. I found him holed up in a wardrobe, avoiding all the fun. Unhand me, you chess man! Jack shook himself free of the Rook, straightened his waistcoat with a tug, patted his wig, and bowed to Alice. Queen Alice, I have done nothing but try to serve you to the best of my ability. I risked my life to infiltrate this fortress on your behalf. Long reign, white imagination. The walrus had by this time finished tending to Dodge, who limped up to Jack of Diamonds. Without a word, he removed the key to the looking-glass maze from the portly man's pocket. How'd that get there? Jack asked flatteringly. How could you, Jack? The Lady of Diamonds gasped. Shame. Oh, shame. Excuse me. I must be allergic to all their bullcrap. let me go back. Okay. What deceit from our only son, the Lord of Diamonds laminated, although he and his wife had both known about Jack's activities. Alice pointed at Jack's feet, and a building bomb exploded there, erecting a mini prison around him. In the thrust and parry of battle, Red's crown had fallen on the floor. Bibwood picked it up. Walrus, if you please. Oh, I do, said the walrus. Polish this and make it ready for Alice's coronation. The tutor then turned to the young queen. There was little he could teach Alice Hart that life experience hadn't already taught her. She was gazing thoughtfully at the heart crystal. Alice, what will happen? Should we send someone after them? Bibwood considered his answer for a long time before speaking. Red, as we know her, may no longer exist, but just as when an invention passes into the crystal to inspire imagination on other worlds, so her spirit will certainly pass down and remain for all time an animating force. Jumping into the crystal has made her immortal. As to what form she may take in the future, I can't presume to say, but I do fear for the universe. Alice said nothing, lost in thought. Now for the family that nurtured you in that other world. Yes. Something tells me that they are worried about their missing daughter. Bibwood's ears twitched mischievously. Understand that I'm just an extremely learned albino and you needn't listen to me. But I suggest you conjure in Alice Liddell of genuine flesh and blood and personality. Birth your twin with the fertility of your imagination and send her to live out the life that is no longer yours. But how? Am I capable? Bibwood smiled. Perhaps there were things he could still teach Alice after all. Look around you, he said. Look at what you've accomplished. I would have thought you'd learned by now that you're capable of anything. At his instruction, Alice placed her hands on the crystal and pop! Zzz, a burst of white light. Everyone covered their eyes, and standing at the center of it, locked in a synergetic hug with the crystal, Alice imagined the billions of life-giving particles that made up Alice Liddell, the cells of her blood, the pores of her skin, until somewhere outside Oxford, England, a grown woman leaped from what appeared to be an ordinary puddle, surprising a thirsty goose. After weeks of residing in London at Prince Leopold's expense, the Liddells had arrived back in Oxford. They were sitting down to supper when Alice let herself in the front door. To a background of gasps and explanations of relief, amazement, joy, and every other positive emotion that Alice's miraculous return could give rise to, she told of how she had escaped from her captors, a gang of Scottish stevedores looking to blackmail the royal family, she claimed, a feat which she herself pooh-poohed as nothing very astonishing. In Alice's absence, and having convinced himself that he would never see her again, Princess Leopold had fallen in love with another, Princess Helen of Waldeck. Alice proved less upset than her mother by Leopold's new love. In a matter of years, she would marry a man better suited to her station in life, Reginald Hargreaves, treasurer at her father's college. Prince Leopold and Princess Helen would soon wed afterwards. For as long as they lived, Alice and the prince harbored an affection for each other, and perhaps in memory of their near union, Alice named her firstborn child Leopold, and the prince named his firstborn daughter Alice. All involved lived contentedly ever after, except perhaps Mrs. Liddell, who liked Reginald Hardgreaves decently enough, but oh, how splendid it would have been if only Alice had married a prince. Chapter 56. The disarray of the queendom didn't lend itself to pomp and circumstance, so Alice kept her coronation ceremony short and to the point. Her one concession to fanfare was to broadcast the event on the government-sponsored billboards and poster crystals of Wondertropolis. She wanted the populace to understand that they had a new queen. None of the billboards and posters would ever again feature reward offers for Wonderlanders who betrayed followers of white imagination, or advertisements for Red's numerous products and inventions. The new queen and her retinue, Dodge, Biblet, Hatter, Molly, General Doppelganger, the Rook, and the Knight, retired to Mount Isolation's observation dome after the coronation. "What's that?" Humbug Molly asked, making a face at the big, hairy thing taking up space near a telescopic panel. The walrus was waddling around the room, offering goblets of wine from a tray. "Oh, yes, that's the Wigbeast," he said, "a plaything of Jack of Diamonds. Haven't you ever seen a Wigbeast before?" "It's ugly, and I don't like it," Molly said. The walrus quite agreed. It was ugly. In time, a new Heart Palace would stand in place of the old, its garden featuring the grave of Sir Justice Anders, as well as memorials to Queen Genevieve, King Nolan, and the numerous brave Alicents who lost their lives during Red's tyrannical rule. But Wonderland's recovery would require vigilance. Glass eyes and soldiers from the cut would have to be hunted down and destroyed. The principles of white imagination might once again be foremost in the land, but, as in Genevieve's era, problems would remain. Followers of black imagination would have to be monitored. Members of the population addicted to artificial crystal or imagination stimulants rehabilitated. Those thriving by corrupt business practices would comply with more ethical modes of professional conduct or be shut down. Queen Alice. Yes? It was Hatter Madigan. He seemed to have trouble finding his words. "I have devoted my life to the protection of you and your mother. I've done everything within my power, and if ever I didn't meet the requirements of my duty, you've done more than any queen could reasonably ask." The milliner bowed in thanks. "And I wish to continue in service, but I have an unorthodox request. I would like to take a temporary leave." Alice thought of him sitting near the fire that night when she first exercised control over her imaginative power. How he had looked so ordinary without his weapons. He is not consumed by duty after all, has interests and loves outside of it. "I had hoped you would rebuild the millinery," she said. "And I will, my queen, upon my return to active duty." He thought to tell her of his reason, the loss of a certain Wonderlander whom he hadn't yet had a chance to mourn, but words failed him. Sorrow momentarily swelled his tongue. "Who will look after me in the meantime?" Alice asked. Hatter focused his gaze on Humbug Molly. "All the protection you need is right there." Molly beamed, surprised, then tipped her hat. "Hatter, if you need time for personal matters, you may certainly have it. Your leave is granted." "Thank you, Queen Alice." He excused himself from Alice's company, and Molly, almost bouncing with pleasure, followed him across the room. The youngest personal guard to a queen ever! The girl bombarded Hatter with questions as Alice cast a look at Biblet Hart and General Doppelganger, who were involved in a debate about the health benefits of squeakberry juice. The White Knight egged on the tutor while the Rook took the General's side, neither chessman caring about the subject, but doing it for the enjoyment of watching the two celebrated Wonderlanders argue. Then Alice's eyes fell on Dodge, standing alone at a telescopic panel, looking out at the rubble of Heart Palace. She approached him. "It will be rebuilt," she said. Dodge nodded. No one will be forgotten, Dodge. Not Sir Justice. Not the lowliest card soldier. No one. Again he nodded. I owe you a thanks. He patted the 8052 strapped to his thigh. I'm only glad you weren't too proud to use it. I should have used it more. She understood. He had killed the cat, but in essence, the cat had escaped. Whether or not Dodge's confrontation with the beast had been enough to loosen the noose of blackened imagination around his throat, to pluck free the barb of hatred that had given his life purpose for so long, only the future would show. But Alice hoped he could put his anger behind him. She longed for the boy she once knew to take up the body of the man. We might get to know each other again. Refresh the love we once had. A love that, although we were young, was by no means childish. The Jabberwock tooth he'd given her. I'll wear it around my neck to show that I've not forgotten and I still care for him. A talisman against his darker urges. She turned from Dodge Anders and glimpsed her reflection in a looking glass. She remembered her time in the maze when she stood in this very room and saw, in place of her own reflection, Red's face staring back at her from that same glass. But now her image rippled and faded, and there stood Genevieve and Nolan with their arms around each other, smiling with pride. The progress of the Queendom. The Allisons' victorious coup. Whatever successes and failures awaited them in the future, it all began with her. Genevieve and Nolan's presence seemed to say the power and wisdom that resided within her, the most powerful queen ever to lead Wonderland. It's all in your head, Genevieve said. I know, said Alice. And despite the traumas of the past, the uncertainty of the future, she wouldn't have given up this moment for anything. Isn't it wonderful? And that, my friends, is the end of The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Better. Now, this is just book one in the series. For the next book club, we'll be starting the second book in the set. And I hope you guys will stay around for it. Till next time. I hope I do get some artwork from you guys, but you know how it is. I know. Good night now, everybody. Toyzilla is out.